Fun fact, the Duke of Baloney was actually a character that appeared in the comics as the second richest duck in the world before Glomgold and Rockerduck were even invented. The more you know. I harbor rather mixed feelings regarding Glomgold's portrayal in this show. He is a funny character alright, but I personally think that they ridiculed him a little bit too much and gave him too little actually villainous things to do. Throughout season 1, Scrooge hardly considered him a rival, and in general his character is treated more as a joke. Admittedly, he had his moments in Hoo Hoo and the Golden Lagoon of White Agony Plains, but even in those he was mostly played for laughs. Maybe it's just me, but I always appreciated Glomgold in the original show as a competent and worthy rival Scrooge always wanted to best. Well, seems that my wish might get granted this season. The general plot of the Ballad of Duke Baloney is nothing really special. Yeah, we have all seen this plotline a million times before. Villain has amnesia, becomes good, heroes are conflicted if they should help him or not because he seems happy, and in the last minute the memories of the villain alongside his true nature resurface, proving that he is truly evil. Really, I don't have much to say to this. The show doesn't really do anything new with it. The execution, however, is pretty good, as I really enjoyed seeing this nice version of Glomgold. He was a funny character in his own right, and I rather appreciated his relationship with Fisher and Man. And in general, this episode is just funny. Now, of course, the most interesting thing about this episode is that we get to see a bit of Glomgold's past. Well, and here's something I said in my review of Woohoo! I read one theory though that was quite interesting. Glomgold makes a big deal out of the fact that he's more Scottish than Scrooge in this version. In the comics, Glomgold is actually from Africa, and there are theories that he is only pretending to be Scottish in this reboot, as he is just copying Scrooge. Now we have to wait and see if that is true, but I think it is a quite interesting thought. Seems like this theory proved to be true. Glomgold indeed just pretends to be Scottish to one-up Scrooge. It is always kinda funny when fan theories prove to be true, though ultimately it doesn't make that much of a difference besides highlighting Glomgold's petty nature. More importantly, we learn the entirety of Glomgold's origin. Now, as far as I know, the origin differs greatly from his comic counterpart, and I think Glomgold is actually around Scrooge's age in most continuities, while he is obviously much younger in this version. This episode tries to turn Glomgold back into a dark counterpart to Scrooge, as they gave him a more similar upbringing to him, after the show was mostly concerned to turn him into a joke during season 1. So this is actually a rather refreshing take on his character. The idea that Scrooge sees himself in the young Duke Baloney is actually pretty sweet, and I like how he wants to inspire him in the same way he was inspired himself. But I think this episode mishandled that scene a little bit and made Scrooge look a bit stupid as a result. For all intents and purposes, screwing over a child by paying them less than they deserve for their labor doesn't teach them any lesson. DuckTales only goes over how Scrooge earned his dime, but looking at the comic, The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck, in which we see the entire scene, it becomes very apparent that Scrooge would have reacted in a very similar way to Glomgold if it wasn't for the fact that he worked so hard that he literally passed out from exhaustion and only notices that he was screwed over after he wakes up. Scrooge was furious, but he couldn't direct his anger at the person who screwed him over, as he was long gone. That's why he decided to toughen up. In addition comes the fact that a dime was pretty much worthless in Scotland, but it inspired Scrooge to seek his fortune in America and live the American dream. But Duke was completely fine with an American dollar. Scrooge just paid him hardly enough. Really is the point for the showcase. How Glomgold is unable to appreciate this lesson, I have to disagree. Though admittedly Duke never said how much he charges, and cleaning the beds was hardly any work anyway. But Scrooge was about to give him more until he decided to just throw him a dime. That being said, this is just my opinion. I generally like the idea that this act, which was supposed to inspire Glomgold like it did Scrooge, backfired and turned him into an obsessed man who does everything to surpass Scrooge instead. While in the end, still a rather petty motivation, it fits into his character and actually gives him much more depth. Arguably more depth than his comic counterpart or the one we saw in the original DuckTales cartoon, who are simply Scrooge's rival for the sake of it. Surpassing Scrooge is Glomgold's self-made goal, and I like it. On an unrelated note, I like Glomgold's dream sequence. It was rather trippy and I liked how Glomgold burnt his own heart for gold. I like some good symbolism once in a while. And now regarding the final scene after Glomgold regained his memory and confronts Scrooge. It was pretty intense and I like that Glomgold wants to make a bet with Scrooge. It reminded me a lot of the original DuckTales show, in which they made bets like this all the time. Well, okay, at least 2 times I can think of. The first one was in the original 5-part pilot, when it was about who could make the most money in a certain amount of time. As both were hunting for the same treasure, it was rather obvious who would win. The second time was not exactly a bet, but rather a competition to settle who deserves to buy some magical fruits. In any case, the stakes in both cases were much lower, but it feels like a return to form for Glomgold. After this episode made a point of it, how ridiculous he is, it seems to indicate that he will now be closer to his original depiction, while still retaining his more comedic aspects, which sounds like a good combination. It also introduced what supposedly will be a season-long story arc, as it is all about who can earn more money in a year. So yeah, I expect more treasure hunts this season, and I'm looking forward to it. And now regarding that money clip. I kinda like how it seemingly became Glomgold's #1 dime, a memento to the man who screwed him over back then. So in a sense, Scrooge did succeed with his method. But now I wonder what the deal with this money clip is. It seems to have some value for Scrooge as well, otherwise he wouldn't have agreed to the bet after seeing it. Now the question is if it is magical or if it just has some sentimental value to Scrooge. I suppose we will learn it sometime later this season. And with that being said, let's wrap things up. The Ballad of Duke Baloney is a very fun episode. While the overall premise is not exactly original, it is executed rather well. But more importantly, it addresses one of the biggest issues I had with the show so far, and I couldn't be happier about it. Also, here's another interesting thing. Olsen graduated at Mauston School of Business. Mauston just happens to be the town in which Mickey Mouse lives in the comics. So maybe, just maybe, we get to see the big M after all at some point in the show. We will see about that. But what about you? Did you like this episode? Anything that bothered you? What are your thoughts on Glomgold? Let me know in the comments. I am Tricky Fox. Stay foxy.
Sly as a fox, you got me under your spell. But you know I'll never tell that I know you know so well.